Well, of course, negotiations continuing about ending the Russian-Ukraine war. They've been going on today in Brussels with European leaders and indeed with the Ukrainian leader. As you might have just seen on the news, our Defence Secretary off meeting his counterpart in America. And potentially next week, a big get-together in the White House, perhaps even the French, British, Ukrainian and American leaders being together in one room. Most people in this country, and I include in that most politicians and most of our mainstream media, and I think most public opinion, thinks that Zelensky has been a very brave wartime leader. And last night we had somebody on the programme very much in his favour. But there are one or two questions. Is it possible that he could be a barrier to the peace process? Is it time the Ukrainians had elections? And remember, this is GB News, where we debate absolutely everything. I'm joined in the studio by Alexander Temerko, Ukrainian-British businessman and political campaigner. I'm joined by Sir John Redwood, former Conservative MP and Minister, and Paul Richards, former Labour Special Advisor and columnist. Alexander, welcome back on to GB News. You wrote a big article yesterday in which you asked some questions about the leadership of Zelensky and, of course, you know, what happened in the Oval Office at the end of last week. And your view was that Zelensky had displayed poor diplomatic behaviour.
I was witnesses there because in this dramatic situation I was in Washington. I can see in this my eyes what happened there. I think it was very predictable because Zelensky, my opinion, Zelensky doesn't want to sign a trade deal agreement, I can say, without strong guarantee, military guarantee for protect Ukraine after ceasefire. Why he wanted to visit in America and wanted to ask President Trump and discuss with him how we can protect Ukraine after ceasefire and what can be after we signed a great peaceful deal. That is, and Trump has another vision. He's neither signed trade deal with Ukraine, and which include a lot of Ukrainian resources, rare minerals, strategic resources, reservoirs, bridges, a lot of everything, ports. That is a quite complex paper. But you know, I know just a bit Trump for his style of negotiation. He's a properly business style negotiation. But Zelensky doesn't understand this style of negotiation because Trump knows Putin better than Zelensky knows Putin. Because Trump and longer. And Trump want to say, Putin, listen, I have agreement with Ukraine.
Yeah.
1 trillion. Half a trillion, but doesn't matter. That is a bigger than your budget. And that is a mine. And actually I have an idea to grow in business across Ukraine. And we need to negotiate situation, and I need a peace, I need a ceasefire. That is a key point what Trump want to say Putin. That is a piece of paper needed Trump to start negotiation with Putin.
You're saying that Zelensky went in there not understanding the way Trump operates. Fine, I get that. But it does, a lot of people would say this, that there's a lot of pressure being put by the Americans on Zelensky. What pressure is he putting on Putin?
Listen, people doesn't know what kind of negotiation between Trump and Putin must be going to in the future. Actually, if we return to this deal, a trade deal, I'll be very appreciate Trump and say 1,000 times thank you for you are big businessman, global businessman, a leader of the biggest country, want to be promoter my economy, my country, my peace. Nobody cannot promote Ukraine more today than Trump with this deal. Nobody talk about Ukraine resources, Ukraine economy on the top level like I do the Trump. I believe for that is an achievement. But Zelensky has another agenda, and his agenda talk about next step. What happened when we signed peace?
So is this minerals agreement? And I agree with you, economically, it's going to be great for Ukraine. There's no question about that. Great for American companies as well. I understand all of that. Do you see this as the first step towards the kind of security guarantees that Ukraine needs?
Absolutely. And he said, we never leave Ukraine if we will be there, if our economy will be in Ukraine. And he say, there's a, for my understanding, Trump plan, at a 3 level. First, ceasefire. Second, election. And then new government, a new president signed a new peaceful agreement.
So you think the election should happen sort of immediately after a ceasefire, do you?
Absolutely. And then Zelensky is a bit tricky talk for, impossible to provide a proper democratic election in the war. It's true. But we are talking about ceasefire. And then during the almost 1 year, which given this Ukraine to prepare election. And we receive very serious research from Ukraine parliament and Ukraine legal, one of the biggest legal company, who can say and explain how can do that. It's from Ukraine company. It's inside Ukraine.
You sound to me like you're quite optimistic that an end of the war is coming.
Absolutely optimistic.
But that means, of course, accepting that Crimea is not coming back.
Well, I'm Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine. For me, it's very difficult.
Yes,
I believe for that is a land of Ukraine. I believe for... I can say what I believe maybe first time. Ukraine need to work with Russian opposition, very close to Russian opposition. Because Putin is not internal. He's not immortal. He's immortal, like any man. And when he died, or will believe the political landscape, opposition come to there. And then the opposition return Ukraine what Putin seized from Ukraine and was occupied. Ukraine need not say for every Russian that is a bad person. Ukraine, it's an absolutely wrong strategy because Russian opposition has an enemy, is a Putin. And Zelensky and all Ukraine has the same enemy. It's a Putin because he is aggressor, is absolutely aggressor. And then need to work much more closer with Russian opposition and believe for without blood, without war, Russian opposition in 10 years return everything to Ukraine. And my vision. So,
John, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, here is somebody saying, actually, this minerals agreement is a really good deal and a very good start. Is that where you come from on this?
Well, I hope it is, but of course none of us has had the advantage of actually reading it. As I understand it, there were several changes to it because the Ukrainian side didn't think it was a fair deal to start with and amendments were made. I think it was a tragedy for everyone involved that the Oval Office meeting went so wrong, and I think you're right. I think Ukraine thought it was another opportunity to improve the deal by adding security guarantees, whereas Trump had briefed the press beforehand that we'd all seen that there wasn't going to be any renegotiation of security guarantees. So it was a bad misunderstanding, and Ukraine has now had to take several steps back and alter their position in the Trump direction in a very public way, which isn't very helpful to the whole situation because you want to show Ukraine is strong at the time when you're trying to get a peace. I desperately want them to find a peace. And if someone's got a better way of finding it, they haven't yet told us how that's going to happen.
I think that's true. I mean, Paul, at least we are talking about, whatever, I mean, I know you're not a Trump fan, but at least we are talking about peace. That is progress of a kind.
Well, it is, but it mustn't be peace at any price at all. I mean, how can you have elections in Ukraine while there are Korean and Russian forces occupying bits of Ukraine? How are you going to organise a vote amongst that population that's in effect occupied? So you can see why there isn't an election going on, just as there wasn't in this country during World War II.
Well, there was actually. I mean, we were still fighting the Japanese when we had an election.
But after VE Day and before VE Day,
the main reason we didn't have an election during our war is because Labour and Conservatives, who were the main forces in the Parliament, both agreed and they governed the country together.
John, how can you have an election when the Koreans and the Russians are occupying towns in Ukraine? How are you going to organise a vote?
I don't think we should tell the Ukrainians whether to have an election or not, but if they're opposition wants one, that's something they have to address.
You can't have peace at any price.
On a technical point, I do understand the point you make. Is there a desire for elections in Ukraine? We just don't know.
I think it's quite possible to arrange proper and democratic election in Ukraine, but that does definitely need to help on the euro because Ukraine is a population 40 million people, and almost 20 million left Ukraine, and then they go live across the world and support America, Europe Union, Great Britain, and another country when I live in Ukrainian should be helped with election and open the not only embassy, but because can you imagine 20 million for one day in embassy in the one country?
It's quite difficult,
and impossible. And second, many people on the frontier and need to deliver just election boat to the frontier. Question: what can do Ukrainian who is stay in the occupied territory? That is a vision, and as a united vision across Ukraine. For that, people cannot vote because we don't know how many people take a Russian passport, how many people reconvert the concerns. But that is a quite big amount people as well. But anyway, even peace solution to people will be temporary, leaving the occupied territory. It's not means for 10 years Zelensky might be president of Ukraine next 10 years.
But get the ceasefire, take some time, try to establish some degree.
It's very tough time to technical arrange of election.
Yeah.
That is not easy.
Right.
That is a real tough process, technical, logistic process. How be...
No, there are no easy answers.
Any vote, yeah.
Alexander, thank you for coming in, giving us your perspective.